Hello and welcome to this workshop and the first ever screening of the MARSABIT documentary and interactive discussion. My name is Laura Davis and I am a Senior Associate at the European Peacebuilding Liaison Office, a network of over 40 peacebuilding NGOs and think tanks based in Europe and working worldwide to prevent violent conflict and to build peace. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you and to moderate this discussion this afternoon, which is going to look at conflict-sensitive responses to climate change, climate adaptation, and food security and livelihoods. So we will be shortly showing the documentary MARSABIT, which produced by EPLO with impact storytelling and with the support of World Vision Kenya through their Imara project. After the screening, we will have an interactive discussion which will be kicked off by our two speakers, who I'm very pleased to present, Vincent Omunyin from World Vision Kenya and Simone Vincenz from Christian Aid. So during the course of the documentary, if you have any questions or comments that you would like to contribute to the discussion afterwards, please write them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. We will then ask you if you would like to put your question to our panelists to discuss. And then we will turn your microphone on, but not your camera. And this is so that we try to keep as much of our human interaction as possible and avoid too much of robots talking to machines. If you do not wish to put your question yourself, maybe because your bandwidth isn't very good or for any other reason, please just indicate that when you write your question in the Q&A box, and I will put the question for you to our panelists. So without any more from me, I am very happy to present MARSABIT, the documentary.
Climate change. What comes to mind when we hear the words climate change? For some, they resonate with a constant stream of reports, scientific papers with statistics, predictions, protests, and debates about the planet and the future, our future, or even that of our children. Yet for others, climate change is not an abstract debate, nor is it about numbers, and least about the future. For them, climate change is real, and it is now. High up in northern Kenya, close to the border with Ethiopia, lies the county of MARSABIT. It is situated in the Great Rift Valley, where the oldest human remains have been found. Today, MARSABIT is home to 13 indigenous tribes, including the Rendile, the Borana, and the Samburu. For centuries, these tribes have been living as nomadic pastoralists, like Lokote, Kor, and Lokule, who traveled the region with their cattle. But in recent decades, climate change has drastically affected their way of life. Prolonged drought has led to scarcity in resources, in turn leading to violent conflict among these tribes. However, members from all communities have decided to take action in response to these challenges. Young men from the region, like Lesi Makaro or Jeremy, have stood up as ambassadors for peaceful coexistence. Together with respected elders like Peter, and women defying the status quo, like Tapairan or Gaspat and her daughter Rose, they refuse to let conflict govern their fate. Gaspat is the mother of 9 children. She lives in a manyata, a settlement with traditional huts. Her daughter Rose has just completed her secondary education.
We are 9 in number, but too, they didn't went to school because many people are interested in their livestock. So mom and dad, they decided not to take two of our children to school. So one was staying to look after goats and the other one to look after cattle.
Every Monday morning, Gaspat performs a special ritual, during which she ties a goat to the house and imbues it with milk. It is meant as a blessing to the gods to protect their livestock. To the tribes in northern Kenya, livestock is the centerpiece on which their survival depends. Once every 15 years, the community organizes a large celebration for all the teenage boys. After a circumcision ritual, they officially become Morans. For the next 15 years, they will have to travel and always make sure the cattle have enough grass to eat and water to drink. One of these young teenagers is Lokote. He has recently started his Moran life.
Karamat gitu, na arta, na uto kata mitra shoni, semua kata, na kuat ko iri mal tos, na onya kata, na ria bag na rem kata, gaju, na jo kata, na dungong kara bag kata, na peragin, mata bangkoma, korda kata, na kuat ko kata, korda na jo, kata, million kaitu na jo, muguarosiam, na buat ko iri, na uruk nol kena kata, na aril kui, eta ko korda bagi, na tene, metu baca onggurin baca ko rucere bagi. Mega tu naral lucu, mega tak pernah naral lucu. Tak mah tak pernah naral, mega tak pernah naral tu sakata. Nak kejiwa coba kata, mega tak boleh tu. Sekarang nak use nak kata, nah mega tak pernah gitu, gitu pernah kata mega angkum.
The life of a Moran has certainly never been one of ease and comfort. But as a generation of Morans is retiring, and the next one is preparing to take over, things are not about to get easier.
Kibadilike na mara na paramata na ata yapa. Kibadilike kata taramata tango pata ta mukri na napa. Amuki jeta ta yosio na ta kumo. Na ta sil to na kumo. Amukora pa nyanga mata bagana yami yo amkira kunini ya bagopa yami yo. Mamanya ita unna tugana kona. Kiala kongo peneke manya ogwe te diga manya. Na ta kupo asio mukolo seral parura mituka pana tia na kopna tugana taon. Kunni tugana oti.
Katara kilil tungana mata ta lamei etaril tungana unni katara kilil tungana bata tal barta katara kumbata ta keperna marti toa te tolo do yeri ta marti katara ke to ngar ari joguti yol tomonok ke yo seriani woling amudol nan to ne yo nya seriani maringena judan kara o to no bongar ne mari marana mari.
Jeremy is one of the children of his family who was sent to school. He now works for the government in peace building.
I grew up in a pastoralist setup, in a simple manyatta without basic necessities like even no sanitation facilities, no toilet, no school, no nothing. My family are people who move from point A to B, looking for a pasture for the animals and water. The impact of climate change on conflict in this part of Kenya has been enormous. What causes conflict is drought. When grasses are depleted, people scramble for these grasses. They scramble for water. What will follow at the end of the day is conflict, a full-blown conflict. The drought in this part of Kenya has been directly linked as a result of the effect of climate change. Previously, like 10 years ago, the frequency of droughts in this county is not as it is right now. We used to have maybe a drought after 5, 6, 10 years. Nowadays, every single year or after every 2 years, conflict here is a direct consequence of climate change.
The prolonged droughts caused major crises in these pastoralist communities. As animals weaken and die, food becomes scarce, creating widespread malnutrition. growth disorders, low immune systems, and disease breakouts, such as cholera, hit hard. The population is left with little to subsist on. Kor and Lukule are the same age as Jeremy. But while Jeremy was in school, Kor and Lukule were living as Morans, traveling far and wide with cattle. In November 2019, MARSABIT experienced a particularly heavy rainy season, its first in a long time. The grasses grew and brought the Morans closer to home. Kor is now back in his village for the first time in 5 years.
Ndugu daba chaka una nafanya taro. Fanya taro inakop. Ndoka unanya nanya simi, nanya taro inakop. Nara ul mangan tanto nanya simi nu bunan nanga toka kati. Mala ben no den nal tono kolong bagala ro tingkang iti. Ro tingkang ro bir den tangkang iti. Kora bagada no babe tiki. Nelle bagada sama gari. Ang kolong wala nya yuar yede wala. Nara bagada sama benar. Yo untuk ne asa tai nakatai. Iperreta untuk yenno yete. Iperreta namuka, iperreta nanka. Goto kabe chobo, binchobo dobe chobo ndo yete. Incho peda masai nopo. Mata yo guairon parki diner sui. Yo dogi na de parragoi. Unko puturma, unko piperia to guairon baga meichen. Longan nago tuake, nekasaga nake. Nekasagake ba mugutu mana nungo tene kejung atwa asine bung dugu nuna makap nundo ka yayi ba ru jim ko nan do duan nyada ko dongo kita ile lo ali yayi e dongo se yene ala na ge eta de gina ne jada ko nuni e ka sagi mpaka mugete jenga atwa mada mutumbo ya do dal non ko nodo ba ni ko tuna ka junga nundu yo ne baraba nugo ba saral barra Tana basal burra benno tana ba desera benno tana basal burra hai kiri gurucho na golbi kabsa na nanto ne tekodo udo aku to ka disem nanto ragal to mana nyago no sem ni mugutu to na wata gua ando na golbi ne to ne to dana ba de bas warna to kiri wana mata na gor barki jendro jidol to ngani nyago nangishu ibigito de sere to nanto sera dara ke no ngolane e terregal to ngani ne raba to ne gu na ndugo toki awada martanga do na gone sanada age regal do manna orro na gunto ke nanyi na yu nu ba kai ngwa ni do saka big na ba nu gota ba gatai ni jana ma nu aro ke shinyo to ni got na.
As rainy seasons are becoming less frequent, violent conflicts are only at risk of increasing. But the people of these communities refuse to let the harsh climate conditions determine their future, or to let chaos and conflict take the upper hand. Lesi Makaro is a respected leader of his community. He speaks of the same rough years as a Moran and is determined to make things change for the next generation.
Egate. Tadi apa enggak mata? Lapono to mana jum mangati, nuku payo, nikiri amma kuno ngoji nikara. Tanah bagata mata takana nungkare nari. Kaya apa tantang mata painnya. Koto karena itu ya aku tata paguan tata dengan lesir ya nanti jaran nano kijing tanah tericet minggu hari. Itu dua tadi pejungun ni. Rambal. Eril dongan muguda yu nari. Neto ke pai butu bata ajing tericet.
Together with local members of the communities, the government and a consortium of NGOs, Jeremy and Leslie Makaro work on an initiative to foster peace in the region. They regularly organize so-called peace meetings.
What we did today is we called young men here to engage them on two issues: natural resource management and the issues of conflict or violence. We were training these young men to make sure that they conserve the pasture, so that it's going to be used during the dry period. If that one is done, the level of migration from one place to another reduces. If it reduces, it means the conflict will go down. So that is one thing we are trying to tell them. We're also trying to tell them the effect of climate change. So we are trying to inform them from the word go that we have something called climate change. These are the effects of climate change. This is what's supposed to be done to maybe mitigate it.
Peter is an elder. As peace chairman, he travels from village to village to speak to young Morans as well as elders.
In case any problem arises, they will solve it using their strength, their fist. They will use it. But elders, they will never agree that. Elders will say, no, don't use the spear, don't use the sword, don't use a stick to make a difference between you and your brother. Use dialogue.
A story is told in MARSABIT that happened sometimes back where communities were fighting. So representatives from both communities were in the grazing field, intensively fighting, and they were moving closer to each other. Probably people could have lost their life and their livestock. Then one member decided, as it was enough for fighting, he threw away his gun. He took a white piece of cloth, raised it up, and moved to the perceived enemy. So the enemy saw a member from the other community coming with a white piece of cloth raised up, and they were so surprised what is happening. So they decided not to kill him. This particular person went until he got the crowd that was fighting back and asked them, why are we fighting and we are brothers? They all came together and agreed that they need to live like brothers and they don't need to fight. They went back home that day and the fighting stopped.
But dialogue is difficult to achieve when all people can think about is the survival of their livestock. So along with the efforts made in fostering peace, the communities are also working to find viable alternative livelihoods.
Nasu beshara tangkang, nasu to soko, mugade tata sokui. Nishwara dana na tukutin ngada sa tatua ngkang. Amugode shingaga ta chibda. Ni tu buricho.
Kadal tanaka na jogo mbata ri ko ran to monno kam majwe ubuni ta dol ne na kam peso na shakal to na shako wotite kwe. Ete na dol ne meto na jing tata na kati gilwaki. Kore na shake kerasta bidas ike asta alkasilang supatoleng yo na ke pira epita la kasipoke am yo ako shu yo kana ngama masang na ripi na yo ake na ripita ko ifina alkasi supata shole ke asta dali gata shabagni to leng kiran to monok yo mara daga am ka jona ka am ka asta alkasila ile la saye na ke tungkiti na shakuno keri siltungana kora ko dwako pa ko na dwake kata ina dwagam am ko woleng ko pang ko ro tungana lo mon lang kaiyak no ro silo mon lo kujit na ko kya ko na ko lo nyek na am ko ra ko pa ko eshomo ko tungana dagma da jaiti la rabal tanga batsa no ponin tenya batano parish na ko lo ri na ko na kera na dog tungana wo shona ka tamba to poki ne utasi na busho meta ko re dwagam batal parna na batal dwage mari dana dwage lekera lazima na ko pa baya bodo na ko pa ka mun siriani na sta to no wangul na ngol na parna po yusom dia bata sambur kenyo to na ko to na le bodo no po na ke bata no po ka ko siriani ne jugna ke kera to na cho na ke yuma tam ko jitam sina na ke tumuro yu
ma kata imani dara maite atua almari poki kata altiriti supat la rukore te serian Taramat poki, tahu tuh suka ngai. Maksudi mara si poki, ngai kata ke poki, ngai no badage na mata. Kata ke poki, ngai no badage na guliari, na ora ini nawari atal gulanje, ke bunguna ka bagninya mata ke itu tuanya siredi.
Kai barjabang nan ninja na jega mana me yutu da sinta inangi para. Mara lazima na sibi komparo na yu dage na. Ama ta tinungona na banana na ko yongkolong. Itu tinungona sin eko tinungona ko yongkolong. Itu dua tinungona sin shida yang kopang ka de dim ninja na ay ko na yu.
Nol da baga ke yini peritilika yengai do. No banyin na sa kuku no bote lingin. Ori da yet ne asana no nya sangai bangen nya kai gi ganya nas to bagni. Ne ninja.
So thank you all very much for joining us on this screening of MARSABIT. I hope you enjoyed it very much. And now we will move to the interactive discussion part of this workshop. This screening and discussion is organized as part of the series of workshops on climate change and human security of integrating peace building and climate adaptation in practice, which is organised by EPLO with our partners adelphi, the Climate Diplomacy Initiative, and with support of the German Foreign Ministry. So you're all very welcome, and I'm just about to turn over to our two speakers. We have Vincent Omunyin from World Vision Kenya and Simone Vincenz from Christian Aid. I would like to encourage this next just over half an hour to be as interactive as possible. I see there are two questions in the Q&A box. So in a moment, I'm going to turn to Margot from EPLO and then Clémence from QCEA. And I'm going to ask you to pose your questions. So we will turn the microphones on, but not your camera. And I'm going to start as I get the privileged position of being able to do this, I'm going to start by asking our two speakers. First of all, Vincent and Simone, you're very welcome. This film was made, this film was shot a year ago and was launched earlier this year in 2020. And as we know, this has been quite a year. So I was wondering, perhaps particularly Vincent, if you would like to reflect a little on the changes that have affected this community since the documentary was produced. And then to both of you, the documentary really highlights the complex but also the very dynamic nature of the circumstances in which these communities live. And I'd very much like to hear from you both about advice for external actors, so governments, the European Union, donors, international NGOs. What can they best do? What can we best do to support and empower local actors who are dealing with peace building and adapting to climate change? So there are those two questions. Margot Jones, I'd like you to invite you to put your question, followed by Clémence. And please, if there are any other questions from the participants, please put them in the Q&A box as Margot and Clémence are speaking. Thank you. Margot, over to you.
Hi, thanks a lot for showing the documentary. Super interesting.
I can't hear you, Margot. Sorry, you have a problem with your sound, I think.
Can you hear me now?
That's better, yes. Go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering, what are some obstacles, whether that be institutional funding policies or maybe other that I'm not thinking of, that need to be overcome to enable more effective work in this field? Because I know, for example, on gender issues, sometimes the funding is not set up to support smaller women's organizations, or there's not the right wording in the policies that enables the kinds of programs we'd like to see. So I was wondering, what are some challenges on climate and peace building?
Okay, thank you, Margot. Clémence, would you like to put your question?
Yes, I hope you can hear me well.
Very well, hi.
Perfect. So my question was, what can we do to ensure an active participation from women in initiatives that are responding to the impacts of the climate emergency on peace and conflict dynamics?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Clémence and Margot, for your questions. So first of all, I will go to Vincent to respond, followed by Simone. So Vincent, over to you.
Thank you, Laura. Through this video was shot 1 year ago in December last year in 2019 and launched early this year. A lot of things have happened locally, nationally, and globally. You've heard from the video that in October, November, and December, there was a lot of rain that has never been experienced for the last 5 years. So this was an advantage to the community because the grass was able to grow and there was enough pasture and there's enough water that went up to early this year. So we normally have two main seasons that sometimes can be irregular in March, April, and May. Then one in November, October, and December. The one for December last year was really good. So this year, the communities were able to have enough grass and enough water. And when the rains came in April, the communities were able to experience floods instead of droughts. And again, another thing that we can note that could be different from the time the video was shot is the changing dynamics. We had locust invasion. The locust came in December last year, and in January we started having effects of locust, and effects were the locusts were able to destroy vegetation and fodder for livestock, and this increased pastoralist mobility. And once pastoralist mobility increases, it means that they're going to meet other communities, and when they meet other communities, there's competition for pasture, and when there's competition for pasture, there's likelihood of conflicts. And this also affected the livelihoods of communities, and quite a number of organization partners and stakeholders came in to manage the locusts, and the locusts were able to be managed by the month of July. June, July, locust problem went down, and stakeholders are currently working very hard to ensure that the communities are able to recover. Another change that I can note is the effect of COVID-19. COVID-19 had a lot of effects to communities. A lot of partners scale down their operations when people are working from home. They are not able to give services directly to the communities. And we also appreciate that the interventions that have been put in place by stakeholders and government are giving out guidelines how community interventions can be done, and this is resuming. So we're expecting again rains like last year from October, November, and December, but we don't anticipate that we'll have high rains like last year. On intervention, this is just one of the communities that IMARA program is working with in MARSABIT specifically, but IMARA program is working 4 counties in northern Kenya, and our intervention is integrated from livelihood opportunities to the communities, to natural resource management, to resource governance and peace building. On livelihoods, we give communities opportunities to create livelihoods from existing natural resources and link these products to market. So livelihood has a market component. One, the community are able to create opportunities from natural resources like gums and resin obtained from trees in a sustainable way. We also have a honey from bees, and then the project has a component of linking these products to the market. Then in natural resource management, we have rangeland management. We have increased access to water. Then water protection, we have DRR activities, promotion of sustainable and renewable energy options. Then in peace building, we normally organize peace forums. When these communities interact, they're able to meet and resolve conflicts between and among them amicably. Looking at some of the questions that participants are asking on obstacles, one of the obstacles could be funding. The funding available doesn't match the demand from the ground. There is a huge demand. There is also quite a number of partners, government agencies that are assisting communities to cope with effects of climate change. But I will say that there's still a gap that these communities are able to, we are able to see from the communities. And then I can also say that there's also a policy gap. Partners, and again, are working together to develop policies that can address some of these issues in a long term. But there are still some areas that we need to come up with policies that will be able to address some of the grassroots issues for the communities. And on women participation, the program has specific programs, activities that targets women, that will bring women on board to interact with partners that are providing services to the communities and design programs that are able to address their needs. And we also promote women leadership in the community. If there are opportunities for leadership, either elected or nominated, we lobby for this kind of project participants to be able to be included in the program participation. And again, we also target specific age and gender in our programming. For instance, the program is working with youths, specifically in some projects, in some programs, and again, working with women in some areas. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Vincent. Simone.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this panel. From Christian perspective, and I think you have captured a little bit from the video, we need to acknowledge that the people have a lot of resources and capacity, and their ability to adapt is quite high. They have deep knowledge of the environment, and as well as the conflict, although now is exacerbated by climate change, as it has been mentioned in the video, it's not new in those territories. It goes back in centuries. And with this in mind, as a Christian Aid, we had the opportunity to have a resilient program that ran for 6 years in one part of MARSABIT County. And it's basically a community-based disaster risk reduction program where you get the village together to analyze their own risk, vulnerabilities, but also which capacity they have in place, and they develop an action plan to mitigate the risk. And we got quite some good results in terms of reduction of risks. However, we saw that we were not really addressing the environmental risk. We were not really good at addressing the conflict risk. So from our experience, we understood that conflict should be seen as a risk, so an escalation, when there's an escalation of conflict, the spike, but as well as the context. And our normal way of working was focusing mostly on the escalation of risk. So to start looking at the context instead, we did a partnership with Safer World, who helped us to do a good enough conflict analysis, something simple and something quick. What came out from that analysis, that type of approach, they organized a conflict analysis at macro level, MARSABIT level, multi-stakeholder, and what they identified was a lot of new stakeholders that they didn't think about. Now everybody had different perspectives, and they organized they convened a platform for different actors between development, humanitarian, and security. And it was the first time that the county government was pleased, because it was the first time that they had all these actors all in one room instead of having separate one. And from that platform, it became a coordination platform, and that was helping these community-led processes that were holistic and trying to address not only either the drought or the livelihood, but they were prioritized by communities, and they were deciding what they will be doing. When this project around 2016, the community remembered that there was a project of peace committees back some years ago, and they proposed to reestablish those peace committees. And through those peace committees, totally led by village leaders, as it has been seen in the video, they negotiated grazeland management and pasture. So there were agreements between the different conflicting community on how to address the drought, when the drought was coming. In 2016, in around November, if you remember, there was a big drought then, and these peace committees worked quite well in keeping everything together. And they were quite proactive. And of course, the tribes there do have a system of conflict resolution, but it happens when the conflict started already, while the peace committee were working just beforehand. So it was quite effective. And they, during that drought, which was quite bad, was no conflict, or very minimal conflict happened. And this is a kind of semi-success story. To answer the question on blockages and obstacles, I think what is, for this type of intervention that are holistic and putting people's views at the center, the current aid system is not really set for it. There's quite a lot of push for sectorial projects, so predefined project, instead of allowing that flexibility, that community decide what to do in that specific moment. So flexible funds that unfortunately are not available anymore in the market, but also holistic and not sectorial. And in particular, during the drought in 2016, the community flagged drought around November time, and the county and that platform started working on it. And the government announced the drought just in February, where all the humanitarian sector arrived, and the way of working of the humanitarian sector just overlook all these local processes and undermine them, and taking them back to a kind of aid dependency that is existing in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you very much. Thank you both. So we have two more questions in the chat function. So first of all, could I ask anonymous attendee if you would like to put your question? I think we probably need to know your name. Otherwise, I will read your question for you. So first of all, I'd like to turn to Lorenzo Conti, who has a question. Lorenzo?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. I wanted to ask, now that I see that there is more and more attention given to climate issues and in general the impact of the climate crisis on peace, if you noticed working on the specific topics that there are new opportunities for peace, that opportunities that maybe weren't necessarily clear before starting to actually look into climate issues more closely.
Okay, thank you, Lorenzo. So in a second, I'm going to come back to you. I'll come to Vincent and then to Simone. We have anonymous attendee. Would you like to put your question? No, I think I need to do it. Okay, so the question is, how can we ensure that interventions addressing the linkages between the climate crisis and conflict are sustainable? And a third question from me was listening to you speak and watching the video, is that it's clear that herding and taking care of cattle involves the community from very young ages to the most senior. And I was wondering, to what extent have these conflicts led to either intergenerational conflict or indeed a changing role between the generations in preventing, managing and resolving conflicts that arise from the herding. Vincent, over to you first and then to Simone. And whilst Vincent is speaking, we will close the list for final questions. Vincent.
Thank you, Laura. I will start from the sustainability question. The best approach to help communities is working through local structures, build the capacity of local structures to be able to respond and intervene to violent conflict without any external assistance. We can first of all start by providing external assistance to them, building their capacity and letting these communities be able to manage their own crisis. So the communities will have their own leaders. They'll be able to elect or nominate their own leaders and be able to respond when they have a crisis. Then a question on opportunities. Climate change, effects of climate change results to conflict. And in our context, most of these effects are a scarcity of water and scarcity of pasture for livestock. The greatest opportunity that I always think is creating an opportunity where these communities are able to share these two vital products to them. One, pasture, and two, water points. If we're able to do probably a peace dividend that can link these communities and build their capacity to share jointly this peace dividend without any conflict, they'll be able to share any resource without any conflict. So to me, a peace dividend will be an opportunity to link communities to share resources that are diminishing because of effects of climate change. And on the age cohort, the young, the elder, you've heard from the video, from the documentary, that we have a span of 15 years for a teenager to graduate to a Moran. And again, another 15 years for a Moran to graduate to a young elder. A young elder is a person who is able to lead the Morans, like Lesima Karo. So for us, the opportunity is we get the leadership of these different age cohorts. Like the teenagers have their own leadership, the Morans have their own leadership, and most important, the leadership of the elders, because the Morans and the young Morans are able to be advised by the elders. So looping in the elders in decision making on Morans and the teenagers is very important. And again, we should also not rule out the role of women. We've seen two ladies speaking to us, how they're very important. They take leadership role in the community. One is a member of a conservancy board, and they're able to negotiate for peace deals when there's diminishing grazing resources. And we've also seen Gaspard. She's a member of Peace Committee. She says that she's a respected person in the community. So they're able to hear her word when she brings communities together to dialogue for peace.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Simone, over to you. And whilst Simone is speaking, we will close the list before coming back. Close the list for any more questions or comments from participants before coming back for any final thoughts from you both. Simone.
Yes, I would like to answer the question on opportunities. I think there's plenty of opportunity, but I think the main message is to start with the, I will call it risk analysis and aspiration and skills and knowledge from the local community, and then use either a climate change intervention to address those and the conflict, but really starting with the empowerment of community at the center. And that's also, again, linked to women and the role they're not only the victim of the conflict, but they're also, they have a very sophisticated role in that context in particular. So they can be agents of peace, but also agents of conflict. So it's more sophisticated than just giving more space. We need to, of course, involve them, but also give them the freedom and the space to take that space for political change.
Great. Thank you very much, Simone and Vincent. So I don't see any more questions in the Q&A box, and we are indeed running out of time. But so I would like to give you both an opportunity for, if there is anything that you have that you would like to share with our participants, and also with potentially even with a wider audience, because there is always a report that comes out of these things. Recommendations for specific action, maybe issues that that have been touched upon perhaps in the documentary that we haven't discussed here, but just if you have some key thoughts to leave us with. I'd like to turn first to Simone and then to Vincent, and just, to close out this afternoon's discussion. So Simone, do you have some final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that my main message is that we should change mindset and see people as resources, as agent of change instead of victims, and allow a more holistic approach to aid and through honest collaboration instead of just coordination when we try to support communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Vincent?
Yes, my thought would be, when we are implementing climate change adaptation initiative, particularly in a conflict setup where communities are most likely to compete and fight over natural resources, it's always good to have a peace component. It's always good to integrate climate change adaptation initiatives with peace building initiatives.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And so all it remains for me to say on behalf of EPLO and our partners Adelphi in this series of roundtables is to thank you both very much indeed for a very thoughtful discussion, kicked off by and circling around the issues raised in the MARSABIT documentary, in which I'd very much like to acknowledge World Vision Kenya's engagement, and also the hard work of my colleague Manon Levry, who's on this call. I'd also like to thank Lorenzo Angelini from EPLO, who put this call together. There will be a report. The MARSABIT documentary is widely available and even subtitled into French. So please spread it near and wide, far and wide even. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the third in a series of roundtables organized by EPLO and Adelphi, which look at how to integrate peace building and climate change adaptation in practice. The fourth workshop is upcoming, and news of that will be in your inboxes very soon from Lorenzo Angelini. But on behalf of EPLO and on behalf of Adelphi, I would like to thank you all very much indeed for a very stimulating discussion this afternoon, and to wish you all a very enjoyable rest of the day. So thank you to Vincent, thank you to Simone, thank you to everyone who participated, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.